All right, today on The Explainer, we're jumping into something really wild. It's a story that connects a 2,000-year-old mystery to a puzzle happening right now. We're going to look at one of the most famous artifacts ever, and what seems to be its modern-day twin.
So let's just get right to it with this question. Could a face, a 2,000-year-old face, just show up today? And I'm not talking about some painting or a statue. I mean, could it reappear in a photo of someone who's alive right now? It honestly sounds like something out of a movie, but that's the puzzle we're going to unpack.
And here they are. On the left, you've got what the source calls the ancient template, the face from the Shroud of Turin. And on the right, the modern echo, which is a recent high-contrast photo. Now, the source material we're looking at claims the resemblance here isn't just close, it's downright startling. And really, this visual link is the springboard for this entire investigation.
Okay, so let's start by digging into this a doppelganger across time. We're going to explore this really uncanny resemblance that, well, supposedly spans 2,000 years.
You know, the source material here is very specific. It doesn't just say, hey, these guys look alike. No, it uses this word doppelganger. And that's not by accident. That word is chosen to capture just how profound and almost unsettling it is to see a face that seems to echo so perfectly across 2 millennia.
So what exactly is a doppelganger? Well, the word is German for double-goer. It's not just a look-alike, you know? It's a word that comes with some heavy baggage, these sort of supernatural, uncanny vibes. And when you look at these two faces side by side, you can kind of see why the source went there, why they picked a word with that kind of meaning.
All right, next up, an uncanny resemblance. We're going to do a point-by-point analysis here. Because to make this case, the source really gets into the details, arguing that this isn't just a surface-level thing.
So this is where the source really breaks it down. Look at this. The eyes, both closed. One looks serene, the other more meditative. But the key thing is, they're closed. The nose, it's described as a perfect match. Long, narrow, prominent bridge. The facial hair, a full beard, a parted mustache. It says it's virtually identical. And then there's the overall shape of the face, that long, oblong structure. It's a match. So the argument here is that the core architecture, the facial DNA, if you will, is the same.
And all of this leads to a pretty bold conclusion from the source. It basically says, look, forget the 2,000-year gap for a second. If you do that, you're not looking at 2 different people. You are looking at 2 different portraits of the exact same man.
So naturally, this begs the question, who is the man in the modern photo? This brings us to our next section. A name, a clue. Because it turns out the man's identity, and specifically his last name, might just be the key that unlocks this whole thing.
Right. The faces match. So who is this guy? I mean, that's the obvious question on everyone's mind. If the source is right about the resemblance, then figuring out who this modern man is, well, that becomes absolutely critical to the whole story.
Well, the source gives us a name. Alejandro Enrique Palma Campain. We'll call him AEC. And that name, especially his surname, Campain, that's where this story takes another wild turn.
So, how do we get from a name like Campain to anything significant? Well, according to the source, it's a historical journey. It starts as Champagne, from the famous region in France. Then, after a move to England, it gets anglicized to Campaign. And finally, in South America, it's simplified to Campaign, just to make it easier to say. The point the source is making is that this isn't random. It's a breadcrumb trail through history.
And that brings us to the Templar founder connection. Why is that original name, Champagne, so important? Because, as the source claims, it hooks directly into the legendary Knights Templar.
The connection point is this guy, Hugh, Count of Champagne. And he wasn't just some random French aristocrat. He was a founder of the Knights Templar, a major player. He gave them the land for their main headquarters. Then he did something pretty radical. He gave up his own title and fortune to actually join the order. So the source takes this connection and makes a huge leap. It argues this isn't just a fun fact for a history book. It's a sign of a deep inheritance, maybe spiritual, maybe even genetic.
Now, you can't talk about the Templars without talking about their most famous secret, right? The Holy Grail. But what if we've all been thinking about the Grail completely wrong? That's what this next section, guarding the Sangreal, is all about.
Okay, so this whole idea hinges on a bit of medieval wordplay. The Old French for Holy Grail is Sang Graal, but if you split that word in two, you get Sang Rail. And what does that mean? Royal blood. The source claims this isn't about a cup at all, but about a supposed bloodline, the bloodline of Jesus Christ carried on through Mary Magdalene.
So this flips the script entirely. According to this research, the Templars' big secret wasn't an object, like a cup. It was a mission. They were the sworn protectors of this sacred bloodline. And where did this bloodline supposedly take refuge? In France. The same place that Champagne name comes from. See how it's all starting to connect?
All right, let's pull all these threads together. A prophesied heir? We've got the face that looks the same, the name that acts like a historical map, and this whole new idea about the Templars' real mission. So, where does all this lead? What's the final conclusion here?
This is basically the source's entire argument, laid out as an unbroken chain. Step 1. You start with the ancestral name, Champagne. Step 2. That name links to the Knights Templar, the Guardians. Step 3. Their big secret is the Sangreal, the Holy Bloodline. And that leads to the final link, Step 4. Alejandro Enrique Palma Campon, who the source identifies as the living heir.
And that chain of reasoning leads us to the source's ultimate claim. And it's a direct quote from the analysis, so you can see just how big a statement this is. It says, he is, quote, not only the spiritual reincarnation of the Christ, but the heir to his sacred blood, the living Holy Grail. So according to this, the Holy Grail isn't an object to be found. It's a person who is alive today.
So, if you take that claim seriously, what does it all mean? Well, the implications are just huge. According to the source, it means that 1. A hidden bloodline of Christ has actually survived all this time. 2. That the deepest secrets of the Templars and the Grail are coming out into the open. And 3. It identifies ASC as a prophesied figure, the son of David in both body and soul.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with these two faces. A visual echo, a hidden history supposedly baked into a last name, and a series of claims that try to tie it all together. So I'll leave you with the same question from the beginning. What does it really mean when a 2,000-year-old mystery seems to be staring back at us from a modern face? That is definitely something to think about. Thanks for digging into this with us on The Explainer.